We should be live right now.
That's right.
All right,
Live.
y'all. Y'all know what it is. Between the hours of 6 and 8, we take over your Sundays. While we welcome you to Northwest Austin Council, this is myself, DeAndre Rudis. We got Steve Robinson.
here.
And as I always mention, you can interact with the show in a few different ways. We got the Zoom going. If you need the link for that, we got it. We got the YouTube going. If you need the link for that, we got it. We got the Facebook going on both pages, Northwest Austin Council and my very own. And if you need the links for those, we got them. If you want to be in the show, we got links for that too. So we got various ways that you can interact with us. So please join us every Sunday, 6 to 8, as we have these conversations about the show, about about the community. The show is about the community, and we just want everybody to join us for these community conversations. We also got the phone. I didn't mention that, 773-379-7961. And we got one person on the phone. We got Miss O'Connell. So as we build this series into, I should say, welcome you to Northwest Austin Council, and we continue to build on different series. This series we've been running is about, community. So we talked about pride, we talked about unity, and now we're talking about how to actually build a community. What does that mean, right? And so we had a lot of back and forth the last couple shows, and some individuals didn't get a chance to really express themselves. So what we want to do is just jump right up into it. We want to let people that didn't get an opportunity to express themselves. And if that's one of you individuals that's on the Facebook or the YouTube, remember, if you comment, we can see it. We could put it right up. We could talk about it. We could bring you in the show if you want to talk about it live. You also could tap into the Zoom where we could do the same thing for you. Barry mans that for us. So you might hear Barry like, hey, man, we got Miss, you know what I'm saying? I'm on the line. We got Diana on the line. They want to talk too. You know what I mean? We do that because we can't really see over there. So thank you for that, Barry. And Barry is in tune, and everybody is too. So that being said, let's go ahead and get this thing started. So Steve, you wanted to talk about building the community.
Absolutely.
Why you want to talk about building the community? Well, what does that mean?
We've been gradually moving towards the whole concept of building a community. And when I say gradually moving towards that, we started out talking about unity. We started out talking about pride. We started out talking about what it used to be, and how things were. And I think you can't have a community unless you have some sense of unity and pride. And first and foremost, you got to have pride. You have to be proud of something, if it's not your community, but yourself, your parents, someone's that's close to you. But let's just start with oneself. Everybody's done something they could be proud of, positive in their life. I mean, even if it was just passing a test in school, or being the first person in class, or the person that raised their hand first, or whatever. It's something to make yourself proud of, or to be proud of, because without pride, we have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And the best thing is when you have a unified pride. And I'm going to start out with that because this week I actually had an opportunity to go down to to Washington, D.C., and I made it to the African American Museum of History and Culture, Culture and History. And there was a particular area on a particular floor where they expounded on and talked about and projected Black nationalism and Black pride. It happened to be the era between the late 60s and the 70s, where there was a thing known as the power generation.
Oh, that's what they called it, the power generation.
Black power generation. That's where you would see the fist.
That's what the fist.
Okay. Yeah, the fist actually was. I think it was more a power symbol based on the collective fingers being more stronger,
right, together
mm-hmm. than they were, open. It wasn't you gotta beat somebody up with it or something like that.
Makes sense.
But the thing that captivated me the most was that when I looked at that floor, it was a whole floor dedicated to that era, those people, and they were not just Black people. There was one particular area in there that I wish Diana could see it. It was literally on the shorts of DeAndre, and I'm gonna see if I can show it to you on the screen. But it said Chicano power.
Chicano power.
I don't know if you guys can see it. Let me see if I can straighten it out there. so people on the screens could see
Chicano.
it. I don't know how to get it there, but there it is. That's the picture I took in the museum.
So that's the red, white, and green, which
Right.
is representative of the Mexican flag.
Right, and it
Which,
was,
by the way, this past week, we've seen a lot of celebration for Mexican Independence Day. So salute to y'all.
That's right. It says "Viva la Raza," Chicano power, and it has the fist breaking the chains and so forth. But you know, and there were other people that exhumed the unity and power struggle in the 60s and 70s. And here's a picture. I don't know if a lot of people know, but this is a picture of Gloria Steinem and another. I don't know who the black lady is, but all in all, it was in the museum as one of the posters that was up, or one of the items that were shown. Here's one that was for Black Power, where in Vietnam. Look at this one. This is another one. I don't know if everybody can see it, but it was very interesting.
Black unity in Vietnam.
Unity, right? Black unity and power in Vietnam, and it says 70. I think it says 71 to 72. But these are the things that I think we're kind of lacking and missing in community, where everybody's siloed to themselves, and I don't need to know my neighbor, and I don't know what they're doing, but I know it's not cool and it's a problem. But nevertheless, how do we come together? How do we bring ourselves together with this pride that's unified, a community pride that's unified? If I just went back 20 years, 20 years ago, everybody wanted to sustain, keep their community safe, keep their community clean, keep their community, their homes and equitable values. And I think that brings about a pride. When you have a home and you're proud of the way your home looks, and the way you've maintained it, and the way you kept it up, and your neighbor's doing the same, and it kind of creates a little competition, who's got the best lawn, who's got the best flowers, who's got the best patio furniture, or whatever, and it creates a pride. That's the only way I can put it. But we're kind of going around talking about community building, and to be totally real about it. And if someone would say, Steve, how do you build a community? And I would have to tell you, one house at a time. One house at a time, one block at a time, one neighborhood at a time, one community at a time. It takes, what is this thing they say? It takes a village.
Yeah, it takes a village. Absolutely.
Well, it takes a village to build a community also.
Yeah.
And once you build that community, we have to sustain that community. Now, many of us will say, what is sustainability in the community? Well, I think sustainability in the community is making sure that the residents are happy. And when you say what makes a resident happy? Well, quality of life. Let's look at that. Is it a quiet neighborhood? Some people don't like quiet neighborhoods. Some people want, neighborhoods that keep up, that's a 24-hour limelight. That's what they do. It's all based on quality of life for the individual, for that community, for that block. But in the Northwest Austin corner of Austin, I must tell you this, at least for 50, 60 plus years or more, the quality of life has been primarily around, the issues were, safe, quiet, good educational systems in schools in the community, having church-based outreach and functions or opportunities. These are things that people looked at quality of life in their community, in their block, on their blocks, in their neighborhoods. Beautification. If you were to ask me again, how do we make a community, build a community? Let's start with some of the simplest building blocks that we can start do things with. One, let's try to reach out and get to know our neighbors. If only one neighbor knew one other neighbor, then everybody on the block would know everyone.
Right.
All it takes is one neighbor to know one neighbor, and that other neighbor to know one neighbor, and so forth and so on. and you, oh, here we go again with my bad shit.
Mhm.
But if we do those things, we automatically will start to build that block, that community. And then some people say, well, I don't want to know my neighbor. Well, I kind of beg to differ, because if you do want to know your neighbor, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, I wish I would have knew my neighbors when they stole my stole my computers.
There you go. You want to know who's around you.
Straight up. Hey man, hey, y'all seen somebody come in that ain't belong here? Y'all see somebody walk up these stairs and steal my bike right off the back porch? Man, since we talking about that, hold on, let's talk about that. Because the hardest part for me as an individual, 34 years old, that's really about community, that's really out here fighting a good fight, rah, rah, yay, yay, community, let's build with one another, then turn around. In one instance, people that I'm fighting for come into my crib, my home, and steal from me, back porch and inside, right? And then I'm with my friend, we cleaning up the neighborhood on the south side in the community that I don't belong to, right? But it's still a part of the mission. So we out there and somebody take her bike off the CTA bus and ain't nobody liable for it. Yet my friend don't have a bike to get around with. She had to go pick her daughter up. So her daughter rides bikes with her. They enjoying family time together to go to the baby's school. And now she don't even have that and can't do that. But it's the same people that we out here fighting for when we talk about community. The thing is, like, if you busting your ass for the community like that, and that is what you get in return, why should you continue to fight for community?
Well, let me answer that. Unless you have an answer, Miss O'Connor, or Barry, or any other listeners.
Okay, about the community, okay?
Go ahead.
Hear me? Can you hear me?
We're listening.
Now, my son stays in Oak Park, and somebody walks out of his garage with his bike, his lawnmower, and his snowboard. Now, he was in Oak Park, and we stayed along Roosevelt Road, and Forest Park, and nobody bothered. And guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Now you got to replace all that. But as people, we need to get together, because we not together. Our community is going down, down, down. So, like I said, we ain't trying to get together. The women would get off their tails and get these kids in order. We can make it. But as long as we sit sit on our porches, in our house and cars, where we want to go, and they watching our kids, our neighborhoods going down. I've been in this like 44 years, and I'm telling you, I never had no problem. But now I have to sit back and go outside, and everybody don't pick up no dollars, they don't do nothing like this. We don't have block clubs like this. Ain't nothing going on like this. Because the young generation don't want to do nothing. They want to sit back and complain.
Well,
but if we get up off our tails and get our kids together ourselves, I'm in the time you can fix your neighborhood, thank your neighborhood kids when nobody said a word. But now you better not touch my kids. Going to jail, I'm going to put you up. But the thing about it, we know the generation is changing. But as we, parents, we need to get out here and get our neighborhood back together, because we can do it. Because Austin is one of the biggest neighborhoods in the city.
Right. So are you saying you think that most of our issues in the community stems from the lack of parental involvement?
Right. They ain't doing it. We used to stick together. So we ain't doing it now. The neighborhood's going now. I know when people get out there and pick up in front of their neighbor's door and sweep up, they don't even do that no more.
So are these new neighbors or older neighbors? Younger neighbors or older neighbors?
The new generation, the new is coming, they ain't doing nothing either.
So it's both, you saying?
Oh, yes. We ain't doing nothing no more to keep the neighborhood like it used to be.
Well, you know what? You always say if you can't get anything done, at least you can lead, and lead by example.
But the kids, you can't keep running.
Can't keep running. You gotta lead by example, even if that means just diving out there, jumping into it, and saying, you know what, I'll be the person, I'll be the new agent of change, the new change agent. and clean up. Maybe just clean up in front of your house, and then a little bit of your neighbors, and then they might say, "Hey, don't do that. I can handle that." You know.
Oh, they ain't doing that.
Well,
Right. Yeah, that's why I say like that's very optimistic, right, Miss O'Connell? But what the reality is, it's not happening. So
There you go. We can
so it's like
do
because
it.
my thing is
And this is
we
what I tell the young men. They drive in their cars, they sit there, and throw their balls in the grass, or throw their balls. I used to go out there. I was never scared of. I said, hold it. When you came to park your car, when no guys was funny, I got to get out and pick up this stuff myself. I'm coming in there. I don't think I'm having no guys in front of my house no more. And the neighbors, whoever they come in, they don't do that like they used to. But they still, you see it in other people's yards. But I'm telling you, I get out there, clean up, sweep up, pick up, get my bag, and like I tell my neighbors, to keep our community, we gotta work together.
Well,
There's no one person blame. We gotta keep it together.
let me ask you this
There's
question.
kids out there. They throw stuff on the sidewalk. We gotta live in the neighborhood.
Let me ask you
Going
this.
out my neighborhood now, it ain't dirty.
right.
Let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question, Miss
I
O'Connell.
always back up until North Side is clean. We clean up.
Let me ask you this question. Do you guys have a block club?
Sir,
Do you have a block club?
well, we had one. The lady just died.
Okay, so you don't have a backup like a vice president that can take over as president or leader?
You know what? We had a good block club. But we used to get block club parties. They don't even do that no more.
Well, you know what? Maybe we need to come over there and organize your block. We can do that.
Huh?
I said maybe we should come over and organize your block for you.
We should collect money and get block clubs for each one. For every year we have we should have a block club. The ladies just quit doing it.
Well, that's the
That's
first
what my
thing.
club needs. They quit doing that.
That's the first thing we need to do is find out who's the leader, and if not, let's try to locate and find who would possibly want to be the leader.
Well, I'm telling you now, the lady's husband that was leading, he just died. The lady, Miss King, she just died. Mr. Khan, all of them just died on my block.
I was gonna ask you that because that's where I'm going with it, right? We are in a situation, our communities are deteriorating very fast, mostly because people are passing and no torches are being passed, especially so because there aren't enough young people that are homeowners, number one, that really want to take on those same responsibilities. Some of our long-term block club presidents that are on other blocks throughout the community are struggling to get even the 40-year-olds to want to lead those block clubs now.
I want to do it.
Even though in the past we've seen the effect of it. But everybody will complain about where's the block club and where's the unity, where's the togetherness. But those sentiments obviously wasn't passed down, and the understanding that we needed those things to continue in order for our blocks to be upheld the way they had in the past. So it's like, are you experiencing the same issues? Is it devoid of young people that's willing to stand up and do those things that's needed as the older generation once did?
Well, on my block, wait, on my block, it's a young generation on my block.
Okay.
They are young people. They got their parents and dad left in the house. And they keep it up.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. See, it's a difference. Let's go back to what we started off talking about. Pride, remember?
Pride, yeah. Pride, pride.
Yeah, you got to have a sense of pride. And if you don't, sometimes people ain't proud of stuff that they didn't earn. They're not proud of something that was given to them. So they tend to have, little bit of care about it, no care. So if they probably earned the house or bought the house or, something.
I'll give it to them.
But that's the thing, see, this is where we're shifting to. When if someone was to give me something that was of great value, I think I would look at it a little different. I would probably try to keep that value up and try to keep it going because they gave it to me. Sometimes people say, well, they gave it to me, I can do what I want with it. Well, I mean, respectful thing, and I would think in some cases the right thing would be is to do what they were doing, trying to make it good, better or better, try to make it as good or better than what it is, you know? And that's where I think everything is going. DeAndre said it. The 40-year-olds, they're not purchasing these homes. They're getting left to them, and then they're saying, okay, well, I never did anything while I was here, so now it's mine. I'm going to continue doing what I've been doing.
Well, I think that goes back to what Ms. O'Connell was saying previously then. It's the parents then. Like, we talked about, when we had the congressman here, we talked about how essentially that pride in some respects was instilled from the home, from the parents.
Right.
The parents, what they do drives what that child sees and ultimately what they can become, right? We talked about this idea that it's not, we as children, we're not listening to what our parents are telling us as much as we're watching what they're doing and then emulating that, right? You can't in one breath tell me to not eat so much and to work out, but then be a fat parent.
Or
Cognitive dissonance,
or
right?
Or you feeding them like
Yeah,
crazy.
or you feed me like crazy, right?
And the wrong things.
Right. So you can't, so the expectation, so when we talking about these kids being led astray, we got to talk about who's been leading them astray. It's been the people that came up before them, the people that they've watched, the people that actually made promises, told them they were going to make things happen for them that ultimately did not, right? When those things start to happen for children, you lose them. And we've lost so many individuals, 30-somethings, 40-somethings, 20-somethings, teenagers, a lot of the times because we have this cognitive dissonance where, again, we're saying one thing but displaying another, right? So you telling me that so as a 40-something-year-old, you're telling me that I'm gonna inherit this, yet you're not telling me how to take care of it.
Right.
What needs to be done right now. I will put it back, the onus back on my side and say, well, where's the questions that need to be asked in order to facilitate discussion to tell me what I need to do? But again, if you were the one that said, hey, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to leave this to you, you should also say, let me make sure that you understand what this is, what the purpose is for, so that you can build on the foundation that I'm leaving you behind. Because what's happening a lot of times, these kids do get these homes and things like that. Somebody come along and say, hey, here goes 60 for it. They, all right, cool. Off my hands, I could put that 60 into this business I've been trying to start. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So that makes a huge difference. Anybody on the Zoom want to jump into the conversation? I see Tamika. I don't know who the S is, but I saw your
That's me.
Oh, that is that it? Oh, you got two? So where's the other one?
Right here in my hand.
Oh, so what's this other one right here? Who's that one to the left then?
That's
that's
the room.
our camera.
That's
All
just
right.
me. Yeah.
More balance and freedom and peaceful man nowadays.
Tamika, did you want to say anything?
Right now, no thank you. I'm just listening in so I can be, keeping up with the Kardashians.
I hear that. Okay.
Just to know what's going on with everybody.
How you doing, by the way? How you doing, by the way?
Busy a little bit. I've been missing in action for a couple of weeks because I've been having my nieces.
Okay.
And they're 3 and 4. So
so you've been running around then.
I had a chance to see you because they're not here with me today, but
yeah,
I'm still back in classes, so it's taking up a little bit more time than I would have liked.
I hear that.
We hear you. We hear you.
How you guys doing?
We hanging in there, Tamika. It's good to hear your voice. It's good to hear your voice.
That's good to hear. But I'm gonna keep on listening and see what's going on.
Yeah,
and you guys
have
a blessed day. When I have something insightful to say, trust me.
I bet. Definitely. We need all the input because we're talking about what does it take to build a community, and it's not like you're building a skyscraper. You know what I mean. You don't need steel. You don't need bricks. You don't. But although those elements are in the homes, but community building. I tell everybody once again, it's one house at a time. But it's not so much the house. It's the individuals that are inside. It's the personalities. It's the people. It's the relationship that you have to try to cultivate and bring together and build. And that's what it really takes. And I still think that we still have a great value. That's the word I was looking for, DeAndre, a few weeks back. Value. A value. We need to have a value-based system.
Yeah, we do need a value-based system. But this is the thing, though. When you're coming from an environment where you got to survive, your values isn't something that you're going to be that's not going to be the first thing that you think of setting in place, because the values create everything in life for you. The direction you're going to head into, the jobs you'll take, who you will and won't deal with, right? And so oftentimes in the community, we're not thinking about a value-based life. We're thinking about a survival life, right? Because that's ultimately where we're coming from in most situations. Miss O'Connor, you had something to say?
Yeah. We have balance and freedom and peace of mind,
It's called quality of life.
And like I said, our homes should be as clean and safe as for environment for these kids now, which we got that. Some of us got that for our kids, some don't, because they don't have they ain't got no value in making stuff nice for the kids like they used to. But like I said, we stick together as parents, we can make it happen. We can make it nice for our neighborhoods, our community, and the schools are doing like they used to do. I like going to school. I like teaching the kids. The kids are not like they used to be.
I like teaching kids too.
And when I come back to school, I'm on vacation. But like I said, we gotta stick together. That's our main thing. We gotta stick together. If there ain't no get together, we don't do nothing.
That's where the unity part comes in. That's exactly where the unity part comes in. But again, we have to look at unity. We have to look at pride. We have to look at
our neighborhood, pride in our home, right?
And we definitely got to look at this.
Pride, you ain't gonna make it.
Yep, and we got to look at this thing called value. Where's the value-based communities that are unified by some sense of pride, and that's where we are at. Because let me tell you, when I think about it, there's still a lot of pride. No, I really do think there is. And the reason I know that because I talk to a lot of people in a lot of different communities, a lot of different blocks. I just said different blocks. And the questions and the comments and the issues that they have are based around a pride for their block, and they're looking for where is the value. Why aren't other people valuing these things? So there are still individuals, if not more than 50% of the block, that still have a sense of pride, value, and a little bit of unity. We just got to know how to cultivate that unity a little bit better to make those blocks stronger. Because your block is as strong as the weakest house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The home that's just not being involved, but everything that happens is near it or coming out of it. So we got to learn how to build that block. And I mean,
we got to fight our battles.
I don't want to say learn how to do it, but I just think we just need to go out and do it. We know pretty much the techniques for building a block.
Yeah.
Communication is king.
So I went to a community town hall where the alderman, Emma Mintz, she spoke about the need to incentivize these individuals that are doing this building. So for these people who are beat facilitators for 30 years, who was doing it out of volunteership, getting the community together to speak with the police, these individuals who have been block club captains for 30 years, who was doing it out of the kindness of their heart, volunteering because they wanted to see their community in a different position, never reimbursed. For these individuals that lead the community in various ways that are never reimbursed, yet all of this money is being passed around. So you talked about incentivizing. I think we've reached the point where you're going to have to incentivize some people to keep going. Because a lot of people are tired, but I guarantee if you threw an extra $500 at them a month, they might find some strength within them.
Right.
Because I mean, let's be honest here, that's part of it. Like, we got to start taking care of people. These people who have been block club leaders and things like that, these are thankless positions that are integral to the upkeep of the community, but nobody acknowledges it, right? Like,
I got that right.
yeah. So we have to start to look at it in a way where we're going to incentivize our community the same way we incentivize other people to stay out of trouble. Incentivize the people that's doing good. And you might have some people that really want to continue on with these positions. And then to a large degree, you might have a young person like myself. If you could say, okay, your current wage is $48,000, just hypothetical, but we'll give you an extra $6,000 yearly. So now you're bringing in $54,000, and to be the steward of your block, I think you'll get a lot of people that might be clamoring for something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we got to start doing things a lot differently. So we got Sauce Pack Mac that joined the show. He's been here a couple times in a row now. And Sauce Pack was one of the individuals that really took umbrage to some things that Steve had to say about the youth. And I really wanted him to come on, and so he could ask the questions that he had to ask or say what he had to say in that regard. You know, so Sauce Pack, we here talking about building community and things like that. I don't know how much of the conversation you heard when you came in, but that's what we at now, man. So if you got any thoughts about building the community or what it might take, man, lay them on us.
Yeah.
Hello? Sauce Pack, can't hear you. I don't know if you're there or not.
Team full. Sauce Pack.
Not sure what's going on. Did you want to say anything, Barry?
Sure. Well, for one, I'm really glad to hear Tamika's voice.
Yeah.
So if Tamika's still on, hey, good to hear your voice. And my thought is a way that we can begin to build community is just by overcoming our fears and our personal fears, and being curious about people who are right all around us, and saying hello, smiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, every little bit counts.
To have a block club, we only need 3 people, maybe, to be, connected to each other, and we have a good start on a block club.
So you think if 30 homes was on the block, which there typically are, well, 20, let's do 20. So you think 3 people out of 20 would be enough to really call it a block club?
I would. I would say that's the beginning. And, the more people they can in turn connect to and be curious about and say hello to, the stronger the block will be.
Yeah, I guess that would be a beginning, but if you just had 3 people on one side of the street, it's not much of a structure, because you kind of want a majority.
More that.
What's that?
More than 3 people.
Well, Barry was saying that at least 3 people, if you can get it started. I totally believe that's true. You can get a block club started with 3 people. But I think you really need, if you have, as DeAndre said, the average block is 30, 34 homes.
Right.
The ones that are near the business districts are like 24 to 26 homes. So I think you need to have on a 24 to 26 home, you want to have at least 13, 12 people or more. And then on the 30 to 36 home or 34 homes, you want to have at least 17 to 18, 15 to 17 to 18 people involved.
You gotta have people, so you gotta have them go to door.
Of course.
Yeah, you got to have roles, right? You got to have somebody that might want to be in a recruitment role.
Right.
You might want to have somebody that's going to be, obviously you want to have people that's going to be a part of certain committees, a welcoming committee, a planning committee, the party planning committee. So you're going to need, you're going to need a handful of people. At least I would say, I think Barry's being generous with 3. I would say 6. I would say if you can get 6 out of 20 people that buys in that wants to start it, then I think you could really get some headway and get others. That's what I'm gonna say 6.
Because that 6 gonna reach out to the other at least one person.
At least one person, right?
Each one of those
at least
reach
one.
out to one.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say.
Well, if we had 3 people reaching out to one person each, you have your 6.
Right. yeah.
But that's a big multiplier, Barry. You get into a bigger multiplier.
Yeah,
it's
right,
easy to reach out to one. If I were to say to you, Barry, reach out to one of your neighbors and have them call me today, you could do that. But if I tell you to reach out to 3 of your neighbors and have them to call me, you'll be like, oh, I got to go do this. Then the other 2 gonna be, I got to catch them when they're there.
True.
It's just one neighbor.
Start anywhere.
That's right.
Yes, Miss O'Connell.
So if you're gonna go, I have a block club. You got to do one go each side of the street and take their names and phone numbers and stuff down.
Yeah.
You want to be a part of the block club. And then you got to have a secretary. You got to have a
treasurer.
You got to have that's over right there.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Now I start to reflect on some things. One of the reasons why the block clubs are probably dwindling off is it is true. One, the people that are getting the properties now, they're either inheriting them because they never left and they stayed there all their lives with their parents until they passed. But the thing that just dawned on me is the parents have back a few years back, they isolated their kids. How many kids grew up running up and down the streets in the last 15, 20 years? No, I grew up on this block and we ran up and down the streets. That wasn't happening because of the violence. So the parents kind of isolated their kids to stay inside. And when you do that, the kids have no real true sense of what the community, what the block is about.
I get that. I would say this also. A lot of us aren't as friendly as we might believe to be, right? Like, we ain't finna go out here and go be making friends, right? And honestly, when I was growing up, that was one thing my mom always said, you ain't got no goddamn friend. I'm the only friend.
Yep.
And that rang true in my head, man. But I will tell you this also, though, it wasn't the fact that she said that so much so as I fell victim to having friends that did me dirty. That's what really, I don't really got no friends like that. Not to say that I'm not able to make friends with good people and things like that. Well, I don't have good people in my life, but there was a certain point where I was growing up. Some of the individuals that I was around, they showed their colors and was like, yeah, you're not at least you're not the definition of a friend that I would want. You might be a definition of a friend to a different type of individual, but not for me. So, it did make it difficult growing up to really sustain friendships when your mother saying you don't have any friends. And then people are showing you that they're not really friendly towards you. And then, again, as I spoke earlier, you got people like myself who goes hard for the community. Oh, I really want to see change. I really want to be involved. I want to make sure I'm active as possible. But then things happen. People stealing your things and, they talking about you in certain ways, or they looking down at the way that you come about or handle your business. And so it makes you look like, why am I doing this then? So it becomes, you got a neighbor and you might want to be friendly, but at the end of the day, you like, man, I don't know this person. I don't really trust this person. I don't know if this person is truly who they say they are, and that makes it that much more difficult to really build connection.
But let me just touch on what your mom said. Your mom told you that. My mama told me that too.
Oh yeah.
And I was in Chicago when I was younger, when I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old, But the reality of all she was doing was making you Chi-Town tough.
Right.
She was trying to let you know you can't just go out there, hi, hello,
for sure.
Beautiful day in the neighborhood, okay. Yep. Because you're gonna get popped in the mouth. Yeah. Somebody gonna take your stuff. So you need to recognize that everybody ain't your friend. Right. Now, it's okay to be friendly. It's okay to be yourself. But just be very much understanding that you can't go into the wolves' den not knowing that you looking like a steak.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so weird to hear that, 30, 40 years. How many years old am I? I'm almost double your age.
Yeah,
almost.
probably. Yeah.
But that my mom told me the same thing, and we were kind of me and my nephews kind of grew up together because we're all 4 years apart,
Mm-hmm.
and as I think about it, we were our unit of friends. If I was 7, they were what 3.
Yeah,
So-
family is. Yeah,
so
I mean,
that,
family's supposed to be the best friends you got. That's a
we
fact.
kind of started like that,
Yeah.
looking out at each other in that fashion. But as I really started thinking, I'm like, in the later years, it had to be a lot harder for kids to be out in the neighborhood because parents weren't letting them out like that because of the fear of gun violence and just things jumping. And this is nothing that's indicative of just what's happening this year, the last year with COVID, or the last 2-3 years. I want to say this has been a trend for over 25 years, in communities.
I say if you want to build true community, I want to speak on what Miss Shirley said. So Miss Shirley said you need a group of people that are concerned about their community and want to build and better their surroundings. And she absolutely right. I talked to Steve about this some years ago when I was trying to look for a house. And I looked over there right around like Cicero and Hubbard area. And I was driving down a bunch of streets in Chicago because what I wanted to do, especially in a neighborhood, still trying to stick to Austin, I wanted to find where there would be almost like the largest cluster of available properties so that people like myself, young 30-somethings, we could all go together and be like, we want the whole street. When we get the whole street, now we introduce our own rules to the block. And then what I view, I think needs to happen, something that we could do is we purchase up properties like that, put our monies together and go buy the other properties on the other side of the street. Now we own the whole street. So when somebody is about to come and they want to purchase that property, they got to come talk to the whole block who own the property.
Right.
And then but let me tell you what's going on this block though. This is how we doing it over here. Now, if you want to come over here, this is what you got to adhere to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? This is what we done set over here as precedents because we doing things a lot differently. And I believe you do something like that, you'll get a lot more buy-in and people gonna come in already with the understanding that, oh, this is a different type of environment over here. These people not playing.
Right. No, that's very true. I mean, that happens in neighborhoods that what we call the bedroom communities. When you look around, he's like, man, it's really quiet over here. But guess what? It's quiet because you ain't there.
Yeah.
You know what? And if you do come there, you better learn the golden rule. Keep it quiet. Because if you don't, they're gonna let you know, especially in those communities where it's quiet like that. If people tend to go where they think and get away with things where they think they can get away with things.
That's it, right.
They already know coming in the gate. Oh, I know I can get away. Yeah, okay. And then they typically do because they already figured it out.
I was telling you about my friend who reached out to me and tried to be preemptive in a block shooting. And she told me, hey, DeAndre, there's a couple guys that just started selling drugs on the block. Last week, it was 2 or 3 of them. So they tested the market. And it was, we noticed them and we already plagued by them. But then a week later, they done grew in numbers and now it's 7 to 10 of them. And she was like, it's only a matter of time before somebody gets shot. So what can we do? So all right, well, let me get some officers over there. Officers went over there. They talked to the neighbors. They talked to them. I told her about the beat meetings and some other avenues she could take to help the block and things like that. 2 days after she reached out to me, somebody got shot. 3 people got shot, in fact. Wow. And the reason why that happened is just what Steve is saying. These guys, they went over there. First, they came by the 2, tested the waters. Oh, say, yeah, nah, ain't nobody from this block finna step to me and tell me I can't sell drugs or nothing like that. Because I asked her, well, did y'all go to them and say anything? No, nobody's going, okay, well, I don't know what to tell you then because, the police could come over, but they're not going to camp out every day of the week, So Yeah, man.
You have to stake your claim. If it's your block, you got to take claim to it, and you got to let people know that. Yeah, you can move through here, but that's all you're gonna be doing, moving around. Keep it moving.
Yeah.
Because it's just, nobody wants that to happen where you live. I was just watching something on the internet. There was a white lady down in New Orleans. She decided to throw her own block party, and she put her car in the middle of the street. Didn't get a permit. Didn't get a what you call it, you got the petition.
Oh, okay, petition
from the block, and the black guy said, "Hey, you got to move this car." He's like, "This is my block." And this guy looked like he about 70 years old, 68, 70 years old. He said, "My grandmama gave me this house. I've been on this block forever. You can't just put your car in the middle of the street." And he said, "Where you from?" And she said she wouldn't tell him. She walking away, and then finally she said, "I'm from Arkansas." He said, "Well, okay, we can start with that. Maybe I'll calm down now. Maybe we could have a communication, a talk. But you're still wrong. You got to get that car because we can't get to our home." She's like, "Won't you go around the other way?" Yeah. He's like, "No, you're missing the point here. You don't have a permit. You didn't even come and ask me if you could do this. You just come and do this." So he's setting the basis. He said, "Look, we ain't having this."
Yeah.
And then the lady said, "Well, call the police then." He said, "I did. And I'm waiting on them to come." And then when the cops came, white police officer came, and he was like, "What's the problem?"
Over there to her
side.
Yeah,
and he was like, "Look at this.
What this guy doing to you?"
Yeah, man. He was like, "Look, man, I want her cited. Give her a citation for putting her car in the middle of the street. And secondly, she's having a party and there's no permit." He said, "Come to my house. I want to write out a complaint." He's like, "Man, why I got to tell you what you got to do? You know what you're supposed to be asking me."
So I do want to look at some of these comments. Now, this is coming off my Facebook page, so I can't see these directly as they come in, but I do want to speak to them. So we had Miss Bertha Purnell, one of our community ambassadors, one of our most esteemed community members, man, that really do a lot of work, especially with those surviving women that consistently, we add a new number of a survivor daily, man, with these mass shootings. So, Miss Bertha Purnell holds it down for that community, a huge advocate.
That's right.
And thank you for tuning in, Miss Purnell, Miss Bertha. And she says, "Good evening. Thank you all for talking about this." Then we got Raheem, Welcome to Fatherhood, does amazing work with Black fathers and fathers in general, throughout the community, and does some amazing work with what they got going on. And Raheem said, "What's up, fellas?" He was saying, in order to build a community, we need knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And those things have to be passed down. I'm going to add that little caveat because he didn't say that, but I'm saying that because that absolutely has to be passed down. Knowledge management is a thing, and we got to figure out how we share the knowledge within the community so we can keep it moving forward. And Junior Alex, one of my homies I used to work with over at Coke, he said, "Would you let gentrification happen in your community?"
Well, what's the upside?
Steve.
Yes, indeed.
Steve, this is Tim Brown.
What you say, Tim?
Sorry, I jumped on late.
That's all good.
Tell me the topic you guys are speaking about.
The topic we are speaking on is what does it take to build a community? How to build a community. We kind of expounded on this from a few other topics weeks back. We started with, what is unity? What is pride? And we talked a little bit about value systems, but we didn't get to the nitty gritty of what values people have, So that's primary. Well, I was going to read Shirley Howard. She just says, you need a group of people that are concerned about the community and want to build and better their surroundings. Well, yeah, I think that's always the case, but you're going to have some that don't want to build. They want to tear it down and make it worse. What do you do then? What do you do then? For those, what do you say about that one, Tim?
Well, your audio sound like you're in a cave, so I'm just trying to process.
Can you hear me better, Tim?
I can hear you, but still sound far away.
Oh, okay. Wait. I'm gonna get you tight. Hold on. Let me see.
You trying to turn this up, baby?
Turn it up a little bit. Yeah, turn it up. There you go. Is that a little better for you, Tim? You should turn it straight up so the sound comes up because the bottom is blocked.
Getting close.
A little better. Is that better, Tim?
Okay, go ahead. Start up.
No, I was saying to you, Shirley was saying that we need people out here that's willing to build it and build their surroundings and make them better. And I said, well, we got a lot of people that believe in tearing down the surroundings and making them worse. But I mean, I was going to give a comment on it, but my question to you, Tim, is what do you think you could do in situations like that? People are tearing down and trying to make their surroundings worse.
Well, being a former resident of Austin, I think that residents really need to get involved prior to the tragedies and post tragedies to find a place where they can get involved in. Because when I'm there in Austin, I take it extremely personal because I think of my children that I'm trying to create them a safe space and path to go to. So I just think that we shouldn't be sitting on the sidelines waiting for something to happen over someone else to create sort of a safe space for us. We need to get involved ourselves to create those safe spaces.
Absolutely. And one of the things I was going to say is, if people are tearing it down on your block, the quickest thing you could do to build community is start a phone tree. All you need is one person that you think you can communicate.
You know what, Steve? One of the things that you and I know is a lot of the folks, when I talk to people, I ask them, I said, do you know your two neighbors across the street directly from you? You know, if you're renting, do you know your neighbors in your building? You know the neighbors to your left and right of you. If you do not, then you're not in the safe space.
Yeah.
Because you cannot speak to no one if you don't know them. And when they know you, and if they guess from somewhere else shows up and they're acting in a manner that's contrary to the community trying to build, they can speak to it on a first name personal basis.
Right. I agree.
So we always try to encourage, and that's the one thing that when I say our community, particularly the African community, is that we speak to each other. I think about Miss Parnell. I heard her name earlier.
But Cornell.
She came in, want to make some difference because of a certain situation that she experienced, and she got to know people, knowing what their intentions are, what their intents, and it has not only changed her perception, but the perception that people had of her to say, hey, I want to work with her. Because it's all about relationship building.
Absolutely.
Whether are you in the social service network, public safety, or the business network, if people don't know you, they're not going to try to work with you. And so we got to try to create those avenues.
So how do you get to know these people, Tim?
Whether public sector, private sector, public safety, education, social service, to get to know people. Because I just think about you, Steve. I can call on you because you and I know each other.
Absolutely.
Not because of the position, not because of the position we hold, because at times we'll call each other out of the blue, start chopping it up.
That's right.
And that's the way that neighbors, people who have common interests should do.
And
So
that's the thing.
thing.
That's the thing, Tim. When you get to know somebody, you have to strike a common interest. That's absolutely correct.
Right.
How do you get that common interest? I used to always tell people, I still tell people, if you want to know somebody, what you could do is break bread with them. If you break bread with a person, that breaks the ice. It's almost like, it's almost like when people start dating, I always say that. But there are other ways to get to know people, because DeAndre kind of touched on that on the time exchange the other day, because you have to know there are different languages out there.
Language.
Hey, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Steve, it's so interesting you bring up the metaphor of dating. And I tell people this all the time. So when you have a interest in somebody as far as dating, there are certain steps that you take. And I say in relationship building, in business, politics, whether it's sort of service, public safety, you gotta sort of date people, and if you allow me to say that, so that they can get to know you and know what your self interest is.
Right.
And a lot of times once you know what someone's self interest is, you can. You gotta excuse my voice.
That's all right. We got you,
watching
Tim.
the Bears.
Yeah.
Oh man, the Bears looking like they gonna be the same from the last 10 years.
After the 3 interceptions. So
I hear you, Tim.
And they look the same from the last 10 years. All defense, no offense.
Oh,
man.
Hey, but now, Tim, I'm gonna tell you, we again, the topic is community building. What does it take to build a community? How do you build a community?
You know what? Hey, Steve, let me say this.
So go ahead.
What's I'm horrible with names. Please forgive me. But your fellow broadcaster, what is
DeAndre
Rudis. You know Miss Rudis over at SAC, right?
Yeah. DeAndre Rudis.
Yep.
I have seen him many times, and I've seen his genuine interest in the community, and I've seen where he has jumped into the arena of politics. And one thing, and I've seen Danny walk in.
Yeah, Danny.
One thing I would tell him is this: relationships don't start in election season. The things you guys are doing right now.
We lost you, Tim.
That starts now.
Yeah.
Because one thing we need is young people with new ideas, energy.
Yes, sir.
To be involved.
Yes, sir.
Make the changes we're looking for.
Yep.
I see what's happening on Chicago Avenue. And I noticed, that there's some young people involved. But people, we really need to get out there to let folks know what our intentions are early on, and not the season of.
Absolutely. I feel you on that one, Tim. I feel you.
But exactly what you're saying.
We at the top of the 7 o'clock hour, the bottom of the top.
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna go ahead. He segued to some of the younger people and things like that. So I appreciate you for mentioning me, because I am out here and I've been out here for a while, and I continue to be out here. And obviously I do have political aspirations, right? That's not my only lane, but I have them because I believe I'm a leader. And I'm building myself up to be so for the community, because that's what I want to stand up in the community as. So I appreciate you noticing.
Let me just stop right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So something that I learned early on about a leader, right?
Yeah.
When we say leader, we have all of these community engagements. When you show up, a leader, to me, is people that follow him. So when you show up somewhere, how many people follow you? If you show up by yourself, you're a man having to walk alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying. A lot of time I see you by yourself.
I hear that.
But if you're trying to create a movement, people got to see that folks are following you. Now, you guys had the opportunity this evening to have a pastry guy of not only Chicago politics, West Side politics, but politics for graduate students. Mr. Dean Davis. And anybody understand this? You can call yourself a leader. If nobody else is walking in the room with you, then you're a man just taking a walk by yourself.
I hear that. Yeah. I heard Pastor Epstein say that. Yep. You're right about that. I hear that.
Okay. And and I've seen you. I've watched you. I ain't said much.
Mm-hmm.
But it is an opportunity during this time to transition.
Let me
get young people involved.
Yeah.
And to build their agenda.
Yeah.
To get the address.
Let me say this.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Let me say this, Tim.
I hear that.
I wholeheartedly believe exactly what you're saying. But I also understand that leadership has to be cultivated. It has to be motivated. It has to be generated. I remember when Miss Span used to always...
Well, Steve, I think you just missed most of what I just said because you stepped out the room for a moment. And that actually really encapsulates what I was just saying.
Okay.
What I was saying to him was, I've seen him. I haven't seen one with him.
Right. He said he's seen me. He said, look, if ain't nobody coming with you, you taking a walk.
Right.
You lead nobody taking a walk. I hear that. I respect that. I know exactly what you're saying.
One of the best organizers I know, Mr. Lumpkin, who used to be an organizer for the Steelworkers Union, he wrote a book. He said, always bring a crowd. Mm. And that was his motto. His motto was, always bring a crowd. He didn't go anywhere by himself. He was so right, because if you're going to lead, it helps to have somebody to lead. I'm saying, as I listened to the conversation, I was thinking how great it would be if I knew 50 young people who met together every month.
Right.
Just 50 young people who had some organization or some group. And they ain't talking about 50 gang members. Talking about 50 young people who met to discuss and decide and figure out what they was going to do, change the community in which they live, and how they were going to spend the rest of their lives. I would love to.
When you say that, it's because there's a handful of us that are 30-somethings that are really active, but we are all in our own silos too.
Right.
There's a lot of us, you know what I mean? But we are all branched out, moving in different ways. And so we have yet to connect. Yeah, we really have. So I hear what you're saying, but we have yet to connect.
I just got off the Zoom meeting with people that I went to college with in 1957.
Man.
And we just celebrated our 62nd year of knowing each other.
Dang.
So
it's crazy.
And of course we've lost 138 of those that we know who have passed away. Mm-hmm. But it was so great to talk to these people and see them after having met them in 1957 when we enrolled as freshmen in college.
Man. So that brings up a good point, Congressman, because that's another thing it takes to build community, along with the relationship. It takes some time. It takes some longevity. It takes a little patience.
Yeah.
You know, no one just moves in the community and say, "Here I am."
Yeah.
You know, you got to get to know that person, and they're gonna watch you. They're gonna see if you keep your grass up.
You're so right, because I started my morning off today at Family Altar, right down the street here.
Okay.
As Bishop Pettis and her group were celebrating the 40th year anniversary of their church.
Wow.
And she let people know that it was going to take a little time for people to speak and for everybody to get their awards, because it took them 40 years to be in this position.
Yeah.
To celebrate.
Yeah.
So they wasn't going to have a service in 40 minutes.
Right.
So they were going to be there more than 40 minutes. And it was just gorgeous, because they started right down the street, right here, right across the street.
Yeah.
So that's where they started.
Wow.
They started on Jackson, but then they moved there. And when they moved there, the people in this community did not want them to come, because they said they didn't want any more storefront churches. That they didn't need. The community was changing.
Oh yeah. 40 years
The
back.
community was about half white, half black. Blacks were moving in, whites were moving out, and they didn't want them to get a zoning change.
Yeah.
Well, I was the alderman when they got the zoning change, and I went against the wishes of the community and got a zoning change for them. And of course, they built a new church,
Right.
brand new, spanking, brand new, beautiful church. Paid the mortgage, don't owe anybody one dime on it. And it was just a joy to be there with them this morning.
That's what's up.
And worship as they were experiencing and celebrating 40 years.
There you go.
That's what's up.
I'm glad you brought that up too, Congressman, because one of the things after going to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, I told DeAndre, one thing we need to start driving in our community is the new narrative of love, peace, and happiness, instead of all this, death, destruction, and crime. We need to give a moment of history every time we start this show, or in the middle of this show, or the end of the show, because there's so many historical things that have happened in Austin, on the west side, the city of Chicago, down south, our country, that we can tie into, because every little bit of history that a person can obtain, it instills some type of pride or some sense of direction for them. I mean, Tim was just talking. Me and Tim, he put some history on me. Like, Steve, you know how we used to do it. You always go. You don't know your neighbor across the street and the one to the left and the right of you. What we doing? That used to be the protocol when trying to build community.
You sound like the blues singer. Love and happiness. Something going.
Hey, we got to touch those chords, those things.
So earlier we had Sauce Pack join back in. I wanted to see if he's available. Sauce Pack, are you available?
Yeah, I'm here. Are you guys? Am I? Can you hear me? Can you hear me good?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, sounds good, man.
Yeah, brother, we just talking about building the community.
Yeah, I've been tapped in. I had the phone put down while I was handling some business in the background, and I was kind of listening in. The question I heard Steve ask was how, ways to improve the community. Is that about like a good summation of what he was speaking on?
It definitely would have to be an improvement. We do have communities, but they're dwindling, they're crumbling, they're deteriorating. The leadership is starting to fall off, and so of course we would definitely say improve, but I typically say build.
Okay.
Let's build.
Well, I think organized. So that, I run into a whole lot of people who are doing things. My day started this morning at 7 o'clock with Darryl Denard on his radio show. talking about things that needed to happen and go on. But then after I left Family Altar, I went to Progressive Way right on down the street in the 5000 block on Chicago Avenue. And of course, there were 15 ministers there, along with the congregation. The bishop came, Willie Wilson was there, and we had ourselves a good time. Dr. Wilson gave them $5,000 to help with what they do, but he had left 10,000 down at Family Altar. Then he gave all 15 of the ministers who were there $1,000 each to take back to their churches. They gave everybody there that wanted it, I would take it, $25 to buy lunch. And he said, look, if you don't want it, you don't need it, just give it to somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, he said,
Somebody else.
he said, just give it to somebody else and show them that you love them.
There you go.
That you think about it. There are a lot of people doing a lot of things, but I think being organized.
Just
Moving out in an organized, strategic manner.
Yeah.
But I
Don't
think
just be doing things to be doing them. Yeah.
I think that's what Tim was kind of shooting towards too. You know, how you organize. You ain't organized unless you do those three people right away.
Well, you're just doing things together.
Right.
I'm saying when I becomes we, I'm saying you spell illness, ILLNES, illness, but you substitute the I and put in a W, it becomes we, and it becomes wellness.
Right.
Instead of talking about illness,
Can I
we talk about wellness.
Right.
Can I ask the question?
So go ahead.
Can I ask a question to the congressman? And he actually led it to with the devastation that has happened in Haiti, and we have seen situations that happen in Central America when it comes to the Hispanic community, how the American government has turned so swiftly to send 10,000 Haitians back to a ruined country and not to process them as our so-called Latin and Hispanic and Latinx communities. So I just want to know where is the Black Caucus is in this with this administration to make sure that the Haitians are given the same due process as they would do the Honduras and the Nicaraguans and anyone else from Central America. The opportunity.
Let me tell you,
America.
the Black Caucus, and especially ever since I have been a member of Congress, the Black Caucus has always addressed the government of our country as not doing right by and not doing enough for the Haitians, especially people from Miami who've always led the way. Carrie Meeks, when I first went to Congress, was a big leader of advocacy. The Black Caucus joined in with Carrie. Then her son became the congressman, and he did the same thing. They got a lot of Haitians in Miami, and so they also are right close to 80. The Black Caucus has always pushed the point. And personally, let me just finish. I just had a discussion. A group of us organized Friday. We were out at Dominican University. We had a forum on Haiti, raising the issue.
We understand.
But let me say this though. If you notice this week, you've seen Hispanics running all over town with flags and driving the car. What I'm saying is that the community itself has to also
hold on, Tim.
get engaged, get involved, push hard, and that promotes the interest. Saying it ain't enough just for the Black Caucus. It ain't enough just for people who are elected, but the whole community needs to get engaged.
Hold on, Tim. Go ahead, Tim. Now you can go ahead. We can hear you. Go ahead.
So you are a ranking member of Congress, and we don't hear in mainstream media from the Black Caucus of these issues and concerns, because as well as they're going to roll over the Haitians, this is pretty much a prelude to what they're going to do to what's happening to people of color in America. So I'll just pretty much blankly would say, when are we going to hear from the Black Caucus, not only on this issue, but on issues of African Americans?
Please hear from the Black Caucus. The Black Caucus we hear from about everything. It's not just the elected people that you have to hear from. The Black Caucus is not a majority in the House of Representatives, not in the Senate,
We understand that.
anywhere else. Or anywhere else.
However, you still have a voice. A lot
And that voice is, I guarantee you, this week, when we go back to Congress tomorrow, we'll go back tomorrow, I guarantee you that the Black Caucus will come out with some position this week with regards to Haiti. I have no doubt about it. We meet tomorrow afternoon at the Vice President's house to commemorate the 50th anniversary of there being a Black Caucus. All I'm really saying is we need more than the Black Caucus. We need more than the Black elected officials. We need the Black citizen, the Black community.
Allow me to say,
I do think so. I want to jump in just quickly. I also want to say I think this is part and parcel some of the issues that we have here locally is when we put people in elected positions, we take our hands off the wheel, so to speak. We step back. We like, all right, cool, you got it now. We put you in there, and that's all of our job is done. And I'm saying that from a local level, seeing how we in community interact with our local electeds, where we feel as if when we put them in that position that they should be able to give us everything, and we not come together and have some more action.
Actually, a term for that is that we elect them and then we leave them.
Oh, elect and leave?
Because once we elect them, then we leave them. Meaning that we may elect them, but the people that will support them monetarily to be able to do their jobs and that have the money, that's who comes in. And so we locally got to do a better job in supporting the people that we elected in office. However, when we, right now, we have an opportunity to actually, because right now, when I look at it, I don't have an issue with the Hispanic caucus at all. They use whatever leverage they have to push their agenda. You know, when I look at the Black Caucus,
It ain't the caucus I've seen running up and down the street all week with flags on their cars and honking their horn. It's the Hispanic people that I've seen doing it.
That's a good one, Tim. I don't even know who is the Hispanic caucus. I don't know.
No.
Man, listen, when you look at Chicago City Hall, right now, they're going through the remapping. We're about to be pushed out. When you look at in Washington, D.C., they have a bigger voice. You know, but
I think
our caucus, one thing that they do pretty much get elected and put on a good party.
So what the congressman speaking to, which is what we ultimately speaking to, is community.
Right.
The what we understand of the Hispanic community is they may come to, and it may seem like it, but to me, the collectivism is a lot greater than it is in the African American community as it stands. What I witness, what I see with my own eyes, are them coming through our community, setting up stands, whether it's fruit or elotes, being able to sell their wares in the community, taking that money, purchasing our homes in the community, and then they become sheltered in and they are only dealing with themselves in our communities.
Right.
But like the congressman said, they show their pride. They together, they're unified, and they are going to say what they need to say to their elected officials and everything. And sometimes we may not do enough of that.
We don't.
What happened to Sauce Pack? He asked the
Yeah,
question.
it says Sauce Pack, man. Let's get you in here, man. So you hear it, Sauce Pack. What you got to say, man?
Am I muted? Am I on?
Now you on, brother?
All right. So basically, I mean, of that last part that you just spoke on, my only question is, and this can just be to all of the African American men on that panel. Who am I? Right now, this is a question in my younger years I had to ask myself because I grew up without an understanding of who I was. You know, it's hard to relate to a a country that I don't even recognize as being my own. So when you say things like, "Well, we need to show more pride," you know, the Hispanics have a whole country that they can get behind and rally behind and say, "This is my home. This is where I'm from." You know, Black people, us, we we have Juneteenth. And honestly, until I got older, I didn't even know Juneteenth was a thing. I was like, I feel like I woke up on June 19th one day and they said, this is a thing now. And the only reason I know is because when I was working, they said, hey, what they're starting to do now is they saying for Juneteenth, you can take the day off or you can just not come to work. And I was like, wait, what? Like, it's a holiday now? Like, I didn't know, like, right? And I had to be, 32, 33 once I really heard of that. So I'm just saying, growing up in my community, you know, this whole talk about unity it seems like it's difficult. I had my first child when I was 17 years old. I didn't know how to raise a child. And what I hoped and wished for was that when they said it takes a village to raise a family, I thought that meant my own personal family would also, you know, chip in, teach me life experiences, how to be able to maneuver with having a child. But I didn't really get any of that. So a lot of the lessons and the things that I had to teach my children, I had to go out and look for myself. I learned how to invest money. I learned how to put money in the stock market. None of these things was taught to me as I was growing up. So my question to you guys, again, is just a simple question. Who am I, right? Because I feel like I walk around not necessarily with an identity, but this enigma or a mask that I really had to wear for majority of my life because I really don't know or even have a sense of pride in where I'm from other than, you know, the slavery things that we often talk about. And again, growing up to parents from you guys' era, the older gentlemen on the phone, maybe my parents are still in their early 40s. So they had me pretty young and it was like they didn't have the knowledge to pass down because they wasn't passed down anything. So it's kind of tough to talk about pride and community when we're coming from areas where we just don't see that, right? Like you talk about gun violence. I remember I was 9 years old. I was in the alley off of Pine and Lake Street, and I was playing basketball on a milk crate, and this guy just came up and he's just shooting down the alley. My initial thought, I froze. I had never seen anything like that until there was another shooting that happened on Pine across the street from the high school over there. I think it's Austin or something. and I seen a guy just dead on the street. Then I just pretty much became numb to it. So when you speak about community and things, I say you got to look at what the young people have been going through and realize that they've been raised by people like me. In my 30s, I had my first child at 17, not knowing what I was doing. And, by the grace of God, I just looked up and said, hey, I don't want to go in that direction. Let me go in a different direction when it comes to raising my kids. But unfortunately, not everyone is taught that, because at an early age, they might be taught how to load a Glock up to protect themselves. And is it the fault of the person who's taught them to protect themselves, because they grew up in the era of police brutality? They grew up in the era of you have to protect your peace because the police won't do it. So almost in a sense, it's like an eye for an eye, right? So that's my only question is like, when we have these conversations you guys are having, it's just really, who am I? That's the only thing I can think about. That's the thing that reverberates loudly through my ears and through my head as I hear you guys talk.
Thanks, Sauce Pack. So I want to point to our comments. Malcolm Crawford said, great conversation. He said, stop the deportation of Haitians now. I also want to speak to, so I go to this recovery center Above and Beyond, and I have conversations which are titled Off to the Races between white people and black people. And so this last conversation we had, we were looking at slave era images. And those are very brutal to look at if you've never seen slave era images. So those are people being cut off at the knees in front of others, hanged in front of others, especially white children. They showed us a picture burned. I mean, there was a black man that had his genitals cut off. They were stuffed in his mouth.
Lynchings.
And, these are the type of things we've had to endure. I bring all that up because there was an older black man, he's probably Congressman Davis's age, actually. And he was sitting off to himself, and he said, "Man, listen, I get it. We experienced slavery." He said, "But I almost didn't want to come in the room today because this session that they've been having at the Above and Beyond has been going on for nearly a year. They have about another, 10 weeks or so left of what they were trying to cultivate from this program." And he said, "Man, every time I come here, we're talking about slavery and trauma, and that's all I." He said, "Man, listen, I hate being a black man." You hear me? He said, "I hate being a black man." He said, "I look in the mirror. I hate the color of my skin. I hate the fact that I have to go through what I had to go through because I'm black. I don't have a culture. I don't have an identity. People treated me all types of wrong just because of who I was. And my circumstance, my situation is probably predicated on the fact that I wear this skin color. I hate being black." Wow. I say that to say, I hear you, Sauce Pack. So, and you're not the only black man that go through something like that, because here in America, where is the culture for the black person? Where is the identity? Where's the nationalism? Where's the pride? And I'm going to defer to Congressman Davis.
About Haiti, for example, Haiti was the first colonized area in the Western civilization that fought oppression and won their independence because, and so they've always been, for example, an idol for me since I was 8 or 9 years old when I discovered that and learned it and was taught about Toussaint Overture and Prince Henry and Dessalines and how they defeated Napoleon and won their independence. And at one time, Haiti was the wealthiest colony in the Western world. Of course, they were mistreated. They won their independence, then had to pay the people they won it from. They owed them and was paying them for years. We need a community uprising. I mean, when you compare And I admit that what is going on in Haiti is not quite the same as civil war that's being experienced in some other places and people's reaction to that. But Haiti has been mistreated by this country as well as other countries ever since they have existed as a free nation. So I certainly agree. Plus, I was glad to hear you mention Above and Beyond because they are one of the groups that's working hard to put on this big recovery walk that we are having on Saturday coming up on the 25th, where we're really raising awareness about our people who are using drugs, opiates, substances, and are dying from ODs and are messing up their lives and the lives of everybody around them.
We walked on together at OD. Yeah. I was out in the community doing a prayer walk with a group over. Don't give me. I can't even think of their names. But I was walking out praying with them we were on Kedzie and Madison, and we were walking east because we were going to go on California, and we were in that general area on California and on Madison, and we were in that general area. And once we made the right, I think that's Albany. Correct. We came to an alley, and we were giving out sandwiches and grapes and water and praying for those individuals as well as the business district. And you make another right into the alley, man, black man, older gentleman, couldn't be no more than 60, laid over, man, doubled in half, hands all the way blue. He done OD'd.
Yep.
Right, but his friend was right there next to him. They both had sampled whatever they were on, and his friend was just out cold, and he didn't even know that his friend was gone, and man, it was a sad sight, man.
Beyond is a great, good organization doing great recovery work. We invite everybody to join us Saturday at 10 o'clock at the Gold Dome, where we will start, and we're going over to Douglas Park, and we're going to have a great day raising issues about drug use and people ODing. And how do we get the money that's necessary to provide the treatment that is needed? So right on to Beyond, Above and Beyond.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Good group of people.
Well, I want to touch on some of the things that Sauce Pack said. Because it sounded as if he was saying, who are we? Who am I? And what is our culture? Our culture starts with you. It starts with the individual. If you would ask me what's my culture, I would tell you, some of the foods. Crab gumbo, bread puddings, rice puddings. I mean, most people don't know about these things, but I grew up from the South eating these things. And then when I came to Chicago, I started looking around, man, a lot of people don't eat this. That was part of our culture. I didn't really understand that as a kid, but it was part of our culture. I mean, it evolved into different types of culture in Chicago. Unfortunately, we do live in a gang culture in the city of Chicago. And it ain't started with the black people or the Latin people. It started way back with Jesse James and Al Capone and everybody else. But those are the negative things in the culture. We want to expound on the positive things because therefore the positive, if we can expound on those, the positive things will help us build, create, organize, structure what we want to call community. And community doesn't have to be monolithic. It doesn't have to be subjected to just one group. It could be multiple groups. It could be multiple groups as long as you consider yourself part of that community. And do the things that people expect, some of the simplest things. Keep your grass up. Keep the noise down. Hey, how about just saying hi to your neighbor? What about even saying, hey, neighbor, if you need something, just let me know. And vice versa.
I need $1,000.
You need $1,000. Who is it?
$4,000.
What did you say? $4,000.
So So one of the comments we had Malcolm Crawford, who's been watching. Thanks for checking in with us, tuning in, Malcolm. He said, "Speak. We need to support Danny. We need to uprise." I would like to change that uprise to renaissance. I want to see a Chicago level renaissance, man. We had one in Harlem, that gave birth to some of the most influential figures in our culture, so to speak. We need a Chicago renaissance. We have some very bright artists, designers, writers, poets, thinkers,
philosophers,
period. And I talked about this last time when we talked about intellect, how it's not as on display as it should be. And we create this Chicago Renaissance, this uprising, so to speak. That'll put things in proper order the way they need to be. We'll be able to speak to those things.
Let me just say this. I think there is an uprising when it comes to a renaissance. I think a lot of things change culturally with the arts. And what I've been noticing up and down Chicago Avenue is a new renaissance of murals. When I was little, there were two murals I knew of in Chicago. The one that was under Lake Street L on Lake and Central when I went to Emmett School back in the 70s. And there was a mural that was off of Damon and Madison of the Black Panther and the Panther. That mural stayed on the wall up until like 2000 probably, until they tore the building down. But it came all the way from the 60s. And now I see like a big renaissance. There are about 3 murals on between Cicero and I want to say Austin on Chicago Avenue. And I think that if people see images and color and something that they can be tangible to, that's tangible to them, that changes their mindset. You start with the arts. You start with
Well, that's art therapy. That's what that is for us. The art is therapy for us. Learning how to play an instrument, learning how to draw, paint. Even video games can be art depending on how they're depicted and people take to them.
Another one comes.
Our art is what we exude all the time, the way we dress, the way we talk. All of that is art. So our culture, you talked about the things that you would call art, I would call the art. And everything that we are involved in is art because Black people have the unique ability to transform the space that they exist in.
Anybody that learns to do something well, they generally do all right.
Oh yeah,
I'm saying whatever it is. That they learn
good, better, and different, huh?
Something well. A poet, becomes a certain kind of rapper. And so other raps, he uses his skills, he uses what he knows. But if you don't learn much, then an idle mind is pretty much the devil's workshop.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And a lot of the minds are pretty idle, and the devil kind of works on them and chops them around, and they get into mischief, they get into difficulty, but they get into trouble.
Let me say this. I'm glad we're talking about arts. I'm glad we're talking about having a non-idle mind. This all comes together with what Sauce Pack was asking earlier. He's like, who am I? Yeah. What do I got to be proud of? Well, you just said it. These people have we as a people, I'm going to say these people, we as a people, we have a lot to be proud of. Like I said, when I looked at all the accomplishments, especially in the art realm at the African American Museum of Culture and History and Culture, I said, man, we have a lot of contributions in the arts.
It just doesn't reverberate, though.
But you've survived. See, if you really understand from whence you come, then you will recognize that surviving has meant that you had the ingenuity to overcome all of the oppression that was heaped upon you to try and keep you from surviving. And so you can be proud of the fact that you've survived.
Right.
I mean, you can be so proud of that.
I'm with you. But I have to say, I think we want to get from a space where we're no longer surviving, but we're thriving. So how do we get from that space where surviving is something that we should be proud of, and we turn the corner and say we're thriving is what is happening for our community, and we're proud of that.
And organized.
Okay.
Look at all the great people who've done great things. I mean, I was with Willie Wilson. You know
Yes,
what?
sir. Yes, sir.
Willie Wilson never finished high school.
Yeah.
Never been, and hardly even went to high school. I mean, individuals. Look, I used to chop cotton.
Mm-hmm.
I picked cotton, actually on my knees.
Wow.
I mean, but I know all kind of people who come from absolutely nowhere, and they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done everything.
Right.
And they do everything. I got a young fellow we sent to the military academy. I just got a note from him the other day. He is a White House fella. He went into the Air Force. He's flying jets and doing flips and flops. Come right out of Maywood, Illinois, out of Second Baptist Church. His name is Kenyatta Ruffin, and I can look forward to seeing him when he gets to the White House. I'm gonna go over there and visit him.
There you go.
Nice.
He wouldn't be related to Mr. Ruffin, James Ruffin, would he?
I don't think he's part of that family,
No.
but James Ruffin got some of the people in his family who've done stuff like that too.
Mr. Ruffin told me, what Temptations? What's is they related? That's his cousin. Wow.
We got somebody that joined. Noob. Is Noob on?
Yes.
So I don't know how much of the conversation you've been a part of, but we're basically talking about what it takes to build a community, Noob. So what you think? We've had a discussion centered around Haiti and what's happening with the deportation efforts there. The congressman talked about Haiti being one of the first colonies that actually gained their independence, and we could do well by learning a little bit from what they've had to endure and where they are, and coming together. And we're just talking about this idea of pride. We had one brother on earlier, Sauce Pack, who asked the question, "Who am I?" Because it's difficult to see what exactly the culture is, or where source of pride should come from as a Black people. I talked about a gentleman earlier who talked about he hated the fact that he was Black. He was about the congressman's age, and just said he hated the fact that every day he got to wake up seeing himself Black. So it's been, the conversation's just been everywhere, man. So ultimately, what we just talking about is what it takes to build a community. And the last question, I believe, was what were some ways to improve the community? So just wherever you want to take a stab at, brother.
It's different ways we can. It's different ways we can go about making community. It's different ways we can go about making community. Sorry, my voice is a little messed up. I just had to speaking somewhere, but there's different ways to make community. I think the best way is everyone coming together to join for one common cause. If everyone has a common cause, I think that's what brings people together. You're right. So even if you're Black and you're in New York and you don't have the same problems as someone Black in Chicago or Toledo, Ohio, I think that if we all had this one monster under our bed that was threatening all of us, it would be more sufficient for us to come together for one common goal and one common purpose.
Okay, so uniting under one common goal, common purpose.
Unity.
So what would you say? What do you think that common goal or purpose would be in order to get
right
the
now?
community? Yes.
Okay, cool. Right now, I don't think there is one. Now, they're not. Okay, there is one, but one. Okay, so if you all know, if you're working a 9 to 5 job or a job that you don't like, and every day you're going to a job that you don't like, right? And one day when your manager makes you mad and pisses you off, that's when you go start looking for another job because you're mad and your manager said something to you, pissed you off, you felt belittled. So now you're looking for another job, right? It's not until we get hurt, it's till we start looking for solutions. Because right now, I think Black people in America, or even just struggling people in America, are very complicit. Because struggling in America means living pretty decent. Actually, you can live in a bad neighborhood. You can be paying 600 for rent, but you're living better than your great grandparents, right? Even if they were
Yeah.
married, you're living better than the equality of life has grown exponentially over the times. So struggling is kind of a struggle is different now. Like how struggle looks today is, you know, my kid gets to go to the store and my kid can buy any candy or any type of food he wants. But the food is detrimental to society. It's killing all of us, right? So, we don't know that our struggle is our complicity of being complicit in our life. As long as most people, Americans, as long as they have a roof over their head, a job, and they can afford their food, they're pretty typically happy. You know what I'm saying? But they don't understand that, like you just said, they're struggling. They're not thriving. It's a struggle. Every day you're meeting a struggling threshold to struggle. But if you were thriving, you wouldn't feel any struggle because you will be beyond struggle at that point if you're thriving. So, um, again, once Black people in America have a common issue of once a common issue grows out of some canyon or some social construct, that's when we'll be able to come together. But right now, I don't think Black people as a whole have an issue strong enough for us to come together for right now.
Okay. So you said because of the ability to have a better life than say our great grandparents, and just the sheer ability to pay your rent and have some food on your belly and possibly a place to live, like let's just say like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's like the basic, right? That's the
Mhm.
like ground level on the hierarchy of needs. You're saying because those are fulfilled, we don't have a true central issue that we really can build around.
But do you know
Yeah,
anybody
yes, yes.
thrived before they struggled?
Anyone, do you know anyone that thrived before they struggled, noob?
Thrived before they struggled. No, no, because I think a lot of the great people come from struggle, right? A struggle is a very, very strong motivator of getting someone to do something, right? When someone is struggling, they're struggling to get a grasp of how a no how of normality. And so, I mean, Martin Luther King, let's take him. He had to struggle before he thrived. Martin Luther King was actually told not to be violent. Martin Luther King was with the violence, but his struggle, someone had came to him. I think he was a white man, and he said, "You know what? Take a different approach, Martin Luther King. I want you to take a different approach. I want you to approach this in a nonviolent way." And that struggle right now is why Black kids and white kids can play video games together. We can integrate with each other. Those struggles. So no, I can't say I don't know anyone who hasn't struggled who thrive. I don't know that person. I think struggle comes from I think thriving comes from struggle.
Yeah.
There ain't nothing wrong would struggle. Jesus the Christ struggled. I'm saying Michael Jordan didn't just walk out one day.
He couldn't even make the high school basketball team.
And start shooting baskets
Yeah.
and jumping up and down. Some of basketball stuff. No, it just don't happen that way. Frederick Douglass said that all earnest gains are made as a result of struggle. And if there is no struggle, there is no progress. And so if you don't learn to struggle, the guys who became the great scientists, they didn't just wake up one day and start splitting protons and atoms and doing whatever. Shit, you have to put some effort into it.
You had to fail a couple times and come back to the drawing board and everything. Hey, we had lost your sauce pack. Are you back on with the sauce pack?
Yeah, I'm here. My phone died in the middle of the conversation now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we were just talking about this idea of having to struggle. So earlier I talked about, as we are now, we struggle as Black folks, right? In some arenas. And I said that we would like to get to a place where it's not about the struggle, and that's where pride comes from, and it's more about thriving. But as the congressman just said, hey, there is no absence of struggle. The struggle is going to take you wherever you need to go,
Well, I think I said earlier, I want to start every show in the middle of the show or end the show with a piece of history, whether it be Austin history or West Side history or Chicago history. But I think we need to kind of start building some kind of pride by knowing some of our history. And the person in history I want to touch base on, because Sauce Pack talked about living around Austin High School. I know DeAndre taught at Austin High School and went to Austin High School. I was started off at Austin High School, but ended up going to Orr. Went to school down the street from Austin. I want to talk about Robert Townsend. I don't know if anybody knows who Robert Townsend is. DeAndre,
Austin High School graduate.
Yeah, here maybe
him and Dorothy Tucker.
You want to give some feedback on what he's done.
Come on, man. I know y'all seen Meteor Man. Come on, man. Y'all seen Meteor Man. Y'all seen the 5 Heartbeats. Y'all seen the Parenthood. Y'all my age anyway.
And the Hollywood Shuffle.
Hollywood Shuffle. I don't know. I ain't seen Hollywood Shuffle myself.
That's the main one.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to see that. But he directed those. He directed those films. So he's coming directly from the Austin community, graduate of Austin High School. And so he got his own production company, Townsend Entertainment. So he's been doing he's done a lot of amazing things.
Right here in Austin.
So that is a person right here that we could look up to. I think
you talk about pride. I was at Marshall High School yesterday, where a family had a memorial service for one of their brothers who died, but he went to Marshall. And this whole family decided that they had so much pride in Marshall because they had his memorial service. His name was Don Box. And of course, they came out of the Lawndale community. There's a street in Lawndale on Fillmore named after his mother because that whole little neighborhood, had outstanding women leaders who looked after their children as Dawn was growing up. And it was beautiful. I mean, people who had taught at Marshall were there, other people who were outstanding athletes at Marshall because he was an athlete. He never reached the point of being a stardom like Robert Townsend, but he went out to Denver, Colorado, worked at the university there, raised his family. And so our schools have had
people that walk through those halls.
They don't have as much as they used to have.
Yeah.
I'm saying, yeah, Austin.
That's for sure.
You know, people used to revere.
Yeah.
At who had gone to Austin. Dorothy Tucker went to Austin. The family still lives over here on Gladys.
Mark Aguirre went there at one point.
Mark Aguirre, yeah.
Mark, of course, went there, but the main thing was his Western. I mean, that was his main thing. Mark is engaged in the community. Mark has been in my office at least 3 times this year.
Nice.
And he's also got programs going that he is running and operating not only in Chicago, but also in California, where his principal residence and so forth is. And I think if you do that, it helps elevate the community where people know the greatness, if you will. Austin High School at one time was the #1 high school in the city of Chicago. It was the #1 numero uno #1 high school. And of course, lots of people went through there and things were done. We actually got a bill that I introduced in honor of the one-time principal at Austin High School. And he had a lot of interest in trying to help kids go to college.
Not Dr. Scott, was it?
Yeah. No.
Oh, okay.
No.
That was the principal. Yeah, it was way ago. Okay.
They were over in the other area.
Okay.
But also West Side.
Yeah.
No, it was Earl Williams.
Earl
Williams, who at one time was the principal of Goldblatt's. Then he became the principal of Austin, and that's where he worked until he retired. But he was heavy into trying to get kids to go to college.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm looking here. It says Austin High School was opened in 1876.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you go through the history books. You're gonna see that auditorium filled up with number white people at a time. Yeah, man.
And it was named in honor of Henry W. Austin, a Chicago real estate developer. Austin shares its campus with 2 smaller schools.
Yeah. Well, Austin is an interesting community. A lot of it used to be called Austinville. It was Austinville. And it was its own village, had its own government. The Austin Town Hall, right there down the street here.
Oh, I played there as a kid. That was the first place I started lifting weights with Rico.
So that was the city hall.
That was the city hall. That's crazy.
Austinville.
Wow.
Yeah, and so there are a lot of things that history kind of tell people if they get into it.
And that's why I wish we need more telling of the history of these places, these communities, these people, the schools, all of this, man. We missing a lot right there. I don't know, like what Sauce Pack was speaking about earlier, that sense of pride thing. If he knew these things, he'd probably be a little bit more connected.
And let me say this also. Talking to people that after we've started the show, a lot of people say, you know what, I like tuning in because I like hearing the history of what you guys talking about. You guys got different histories of things that we never knew.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people that's gonna tune in to that part. Like, I never knew this thing was called Austinville, and the town hall was where the city council was. It's pretty cool to know.
Well, history is interesting, but mystery is more intriguing.
That's a fact.
I mean, people were, when I was a kid, they taught us that history meant is story.
Okay.
When you separate words, that's how we were taught to read.
Yeah.
Is story. But I like to turn it around to this story, my story.
Okay.
And everybody are making their own history. I mean, even at church, we sing a song. This is my story. This is my song. Praising my Savior all the day long. Putting emphasis on the individual. You can't find from others what you have to find inside of yourself. I'm a firm believer that everything begins with self.
It does, absolutely, it does.
That's why I often
the mentality.
say you can't lead where you don't go.
Yeah.
And you can't teach what you don't know.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of people got a lot of ideas and thoughts and all, and they have a right to have those. But they also have the right to be wrong. They have the right to be inappropriate. They have a right to not be accurate in terms of their analysis of things. But they got a right to
That's
it.
right. That is
And
right.
they got a right to do it. That's what democracy means. That you have a right to do it. You have a right to say what you want to say. You have the First Amendment says that freedom of speech. So people, and when you compare our country with some other countries, we have more freedom of speech than many other places in the world. You say some of the stuff that people say in this country, in some other countries, they lock you up.
You might lose your tongue.
You lose your tongue.
For real.
They cut it off. So but we gotta keep coming.
Yeah.
Yes, Lord.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, so we at that hour, so I
Yes,
want to go ahead
indeed.
and start and wrap it up. Sauce Pack and Noob, appreciate y'all for jumping on.
Absolutely.
I know both of y'all kind of got in the conversation a little bit later. So for y'all and to everybody else watching, listen, we do this thing 6 to 8 on Sundays. And we just talking about community building, community conversations is what it's titled. And we welcoming y'all to Northwest Austin Council every time we do this. DeAndre Rudis, Steve Robinson, Congressman Davis. You could tune in on various channels. We got the Facebook, we got the YouTube, we got the Zoom, and obviously we have the StreamYard. I couldn't remember. And then we have the telephone if you would like to call in that way too. So before we close out for everybody, hey Noob, you got something you want to leave us with, man? We like to close the show out like that.
Well, just everyone should just be safe and maybe I don't know, get the vaccine or something. I don't know.
All right, hey, ain't no wrong with it, man.
All right.
Hey,
I don't know what to say, man. Thank you.
No, that's a mouthful. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Noob.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks. Let's go over here to the Zoom. I still see Barry. Barry, you got anything you want to say, man, in closing?
Barry Corn.
Yeah, hey guys. Good conversation. That's what it takes, is people talking with one another. That's the beginning of significant things happening.
All right. Thanks, Barry.
Nothing else?
Who else is that right there?
I think
that was Tim?
Who is that? No. Tim, no. That's Tosh. You got anything to say, Tosh? Can you hear me? Tasha. She might not be on.
Okay.
But go ahead.
All right, Congressman.
Join us at 10 o'clock on Saturday at the Gold Dome. That's 100 North Central for our recovery walk. Plus, we want to thank all the ministers in the community who are observing Sunday the 26th as Recovery Sunday. And we've asked them if they would put something in their church bulletin or something in their sermon about recovery, about becoming different than what you are. Mm-hmm. Those of us who know about Paul, we know that he was Saul of Tarsus and was on his way to persecute the Christians. But some struck him on the road and he saw the light. Sometimes people can see the light. And that's what we're trying to help people who are drug addicted, people who are disavowed, people who've given up, and people who use external substances to try to feel good within themselves.
I hear you. I hear you.
All right, Steve?
Well, I just want to say I thank everybody for coming on tonight. We will definitely continue this conversation because one thing that we do want to let everybody know, we're just not talking the talk. DeAndre and I, and I'm definitely sure the congressman is walking the walk. We're going to start talking about solutions and things that we have been doing in community to try to build, to organize, structure, and make our place of living stronger. So we're going to keep this going. Yeah. And one of the biggest things will be values. What are our value-based systems in our community?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
And then we're going to have that tidbit of history every. And if you got some history about Austin or the West Side or Chicago or whatever, feel free to call in and let us know the history.
Yeah. Speaking of calling in, that call-in number 773-379-7961. If you got the landline, again, you could catch us 6 to 8 on Sundays. We got Facebook, YouTube, we have Zoom, and the StreamYard link is what you use to get directly into the show so that you could be on screen with us. For those people that are watching via the other channels, if you comment, we can see the comment live. If you are on my Facebook page, I can't see it live, but I can read it live, and you can interact with us that way unless you want to go to one of the other channels, and you're free to do that. For me, it's, let's just keep working. Listen, I heard what Tim was saying. He said, man, look, you want to be a leader, saying as Congressman said, you got to have some people to follow you, man. So listen, y'all see a young boy out here doing this thing, salute me, but don't shoot me, man, and tell me and point me in the right direction. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm looking for. With that being said, from the youngest old man in the room, DeAndre Rudis, Steve Robinson, Congressman Davis, listen, they didn't want to give us a seat at the table, so we created our own. Yo, thank you for allowing us to welcome you to Northwest Austin Council.
Miss O'Connor, are you there? I think we see